The Shady Cop. In the quiet, upscale neighborhood of Lakeside Heights, where the lawns were always immaculate, and the homes looked more like mini mansions than houses, the early morning air was crisp and clean. The sun had just begun to rise, casting a golden glow over the manicured streets. Detective Marcus Mac Turner was already awake, sitting on the edge of his bed, staring blankly at the wall. His wife, Emily, still slept soundly beside him, unaware of the thoughts that swirled in his mind. Mac was a man who wore his uniform with pride, but beneath the surface, there was a darkness that tainted everything he touched. As he dressed in his crisp blue uniform, he glanced at himself in the mirror. His eyes were cold, and his jaw was set in a hard line. Mac was known around the precinct as a tough cop, someone who got results, but not always in the right way. He had a knack for bending the rules, skimming off the top, and making deals that left his pockets heavy. Mac grabbed his badge and gun, slipping them into place with the ease of years of practice. He walked down the stairs of his opulent home, past the gleaming marble floors and expensive furniture, and out the door without a sound. The sun was still low in the sky as he slid into his unmarked car, the engine purring to life as he pulled out of the driveway. His first stop of the day was a local diner, where he ordered his usual black coffee and eggs. The waitress, a young woman with tired eyes, gave him a tight smile as she placed the plate in front of him. Mac didn't bother to thank her. He was too busy checking his phone for messages. One text stood out: "Meet me at the docks. 8 a.m. Don't be late." Mac's lip curled into a smirk as he deleted the message. He knew what this meeting was about, a quick deal with some local thugs who had information to sell. Information that Mac could use to pad his already fat wallet. As the hours ticked by, Mac went about his day, making stops here and there, shaking down small-time crooks, and pocketing whatever cash he could find. He wasn't worried about getting caught. He had been doing this for years, and no one had ever dared to question him. By late afternoon, the sun was high in the sky, and the heat was oppressive. Mac pulled up to a rundown warehouse on the edge of town, a place where deals were made and secrets were kept. He stepped out of the car, adjusting his gun belt as he approached the group of men waiting for him. They were rough-looking, all tattoos and leather jackets, but they knew better than to mess with Mac. He had a reputation for being ruthless, and they needed him just as much as he needed them. "Got the info?" Mac asked, his voice low and menacing. One of the men nodded, handing over a small envelope. Mac took it, slipping it into his pocket without even looking at it. He knew the contents would be useful, something he could leverage later. "You get what you need, and I get my cut," Mac said, his eyes narrowing as he looked at each of the men in turn. "We clear?" They all nodded, their expressions grim. Mac had them under his thumb, and they knew it. The deal was quick, and Mac was back in his car before the sun began to set. As he drove back to Lakeside Heights, he thought about the envelope in his pocket. It wasn't just money, it was power. And Mac was addicted to it. The night was uneventful, just like every other night in Lakeside Heights. The residents slept soundly in their luxurious homes, unaware of the corruption that lurked just beneath the surface. But Mac didn't sleep. He couldn't. By the time the first light of dawn began to creep over the horizon, Mac was still awake, sitting in his living room with a glass of whiskey in hand. His wife had long since gone to bed, leaving him alone with his thoughts. He stared out the window at the perfectly manicured lawn, the tall, iron gates that surrounded his home, and the quiet streets beyond. This was his kingdom, and he ruled it with an iron fist. But deep down, he knew it was all a lie. As the sun rose higher in the sky, Mac finished his drink and stood up. He had another day ahead of him, another day of deals and deception. He grabbed his badge and gun, slipping them into place as he walked out the door once again. The neighborhood was waking up, but for Mac, the day never ended. It was just one long, endless cycle of greed, corruption, and power. And as long as he kept playing the game, he knew he would always come out on top. But in the quiet moments, when the world was still and the darkness crept in, Mac couldn't shake the feeling that one day, it would all come crashing down. And when that day came, there would be no one to save him from the consequences of his actions. For now, though, he pushed those thoughts aside, focusing on the day ahead. The sun was shining, the birds were singing, and Detective Marcus McTurner was ready to face whatever came his way.